So what we're going to consider with this section is talking about how cameras like the Box Brownie kind of like changed the way that people took photographs, and they ended up becoming from professional photography into the hands of the everyday person. How they documented their lives every day, and how we got from a camera like this to now to cameras like this, and how we document our lives, and how it changed from being a professional kind of sense of being in a studio and having to be in a setting to photography being outside in the world and documenting everyday life. So the Box Brownie was a camera that was a real game changer, made by Kodak Eastman around about the turn of the century, well 1900, and was made until about the 1980s. This model is one that was actually made in the 1940s, so the earlier models were ones that were pretty much just essentially a cardboard box with a leatherette finish, with a lens and with a film back. What the Brownie did for photography was put a camera in the hands of everyday people, and made it very, very easy to take photographs. So who were taking photographs at these times? It wasn't a photographer. It was mums and dads. It was promoted as being a camera that could be used by children, a camera that cost $1, that then film processing could be cheap, that everyone could actually kind of document their life. This was a camera that went to world wars, which was a real change, where this was a robust camera that could document kind of like everyday happenings. It went into the hands of untrained people, and actually was the first time that we were getting what Kodak kind of coined as a snapshot of life, where you could actually you could sit and have the camera, look through the viewfinder, hit the shutter, and you could actually take these snapshots of life. This camera allowed people to be able to take moments as they happened in their daily lives, impromptu, unset up, things that were happening, whether it was picnics, birthdays, those kind of things. So the family photograph and the snapshot of that life happened with cameras like this, so that then when you actually get from this camera to a smartphone, you can actually see where, there's a direct line to selfie culture and actually taking snapshots of our own faces and our lives, how ubiquitous it is to take photographs that are of daily life with a mobile phone that started with a camera like this. And so this was essentially close to what the first Brownie looked like. This is kind of like as a box camera by Kodak. By the time you got to the 40s and 50s, you had this camera that actually had kind of like a lens on top for portraiture and a lens on the other side if you wanted to take landscape, a simple shutter and a mechanism for holding film. So the way that it held film was that it actually had a section. You bought your film, you bought your 620 Kodak film from the shops, and then you actually had this casing. The casing the film went from one spool across the picture plane and then onto another spool, and then into the camera, then closed up, light tight, and then you actually had this little knob that was actually able to advance the film every exposure, telling you what exposure you're up to on the back in a little kind of like light tight red window. It took 6 to 8 exposures, and these were large format negatives of a high quality, and the lens could take something from maybe 5 feet all the way through to kind of something that was a little bit further away. So this was where people could take this on picnics and on family outings, and they could take it and they could travel with it as well. This was a very robust and travel-worthy camera. So also, once the Brownie was made, then a lot of the other box cameras were being made. So this is a German Zeiss camera, and this one is one made by Hanimex. So it actually ended up becoming kind of like the way that a lot of camera brands kind of like started to make their own instant cameras. And then from this, you can actually kind of like start to draw a straight line to smaller single reflex cameras and to Polaroid, and then from Polaroid to digital cameras, and from digital cameras to what people call iPhoneography, which is now the quality of a camera in a phone is something that can actually take a lot of photographs. The thing to be considered between this photography and digital photography is that this Box Brownie could take 6 to 8 exposures. You had to be very kind of selective about what you wanted to take, because even though the processing was cheap, you only had 6 pictures. Whereas today, I can actually go out and I can actually make sure that I get the exact photograph that I want to. I can take many photographs. A modern smartphone can take thousands of photographs without really breaking a sweat. So now I think it's important to say in how we document now as to how we documented then is actually quite was a little bit more selective. Whereas now there's so many photographs out there. Where's the quality there? How will we consider iPhoneography in the future? So I think in talking about these cameras and this type of photography kind of starting at this time, and how that's kind of like led on to the way we take photographs now, is actually how photography changed in how we considered ourselves and how we carried ourselves through the process of being photographed. Back in the day, it was a very formalised kind of idea of being photographed. There was a lot of ceremony, and there was a way that people dressed because they were having a portrait done. Whereas the informal nature of this type of photography, taking a snapshot of life, it actually may not have the same quality. It may actually have somebody that's laughing, or somebody that's actually doing something that's quite irreverent, and somebody that's actually kind of like maybe not in their Sunday best, but maybe kind of like in their day clothes. Documenting sporting events and things that actually had a texture about them that took them out of the studio and actually out into everyday life.